Welcome to This Sea Ranch Life. Today we're going to hear from Jim Elias. Jim's the director of an organization called Redwood Coast Land Conservancy, and they're doing some of the most important work up and down our coast in preserving our natural environment and revealing a lot of the history, too. Before we talk with Jim, let's hear a brief word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Carolyn from Surf Market. Surf Market has proudly served the Sea Ranch community since 1956. We're honored to share a common vision with the Sea Ranch, a deep commitment to environmental stewardship. Through our support of organic farmers, local purveyors, and through our partnership with Sonoma Clean Power, we're doing our part to ensure a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you to the Sea Ranch community for your continued support. We hope to see you soon.
For joining us on This Sea Ranch Life. Today, our guest is Jim Elias. Jim's the executive director of an organization called Redwood Coast Land Conservancy, or RCLC. Jim, thanks for joining us today. Glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Jim, let's talk a little bit about RCLC. That's how we're going to refer to it, Redwood Coast Land Conservancy. Tell us a little bit about the origin of the organization, a bit about its mission, and where you operate geographically.
Yeah, you bet. RCLC goes back to 1992, and we like to think that our mission is summed up by saying that we're here to protect, to restore, and to share the natural wonders of the Mendonoma coast. Our area of work, our service area, if you want to think about it that way, goes as far as Point Arena and extends as far south, theoretically, as the Russian River, but mostly Timber Cove is about where our main interest lies.
Yeah, and Jim, you're a relative newcomer to RCLC. You haven't. When did you take on the helm of the organization?
You know, it's going on to about 2.5 years now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's where some of the gray is from.
There you go. There you go. And tell our viewers, where were you before? Just a quick bit of what your history was prior to getting here.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I have spent most of the last 30 years in land conservation. And it's kind of funny to think that my first job in land conservation was in Bozeman, Montana, and I was the first full-time executive director of what is the Gallatin Valley Land Trust, which has become a very successful land trust. And then they started in 1990. And here I am, 30 years later, with my first, coming into RCLC with another tremendous moment of opportunity for an organization that has so much support, an enthusiastic community, and the desire to invest in the future of the natural world. So I've spent most of my time either acquiring easements or lands, and then in the second half of my career running organizations that do that.
Yeah, so RCLC sounds like a natural fit for you in many ways.
This time I know what I'm doing.
That's great. That's great. Give us some background. RCLC has got some past projects or I guess they're projects that have been in existence now. The organization's accomplished them. The ones I know about are Hearn Gulch, Cook's Beach, and the Wallala Bluff Trail. I'm guessing a lot of our viewers are familiar with the Wallala Bluff Trail. But tell me a little bit about each of those three projects that the organization has accomplished in the past.
Yeah, as you say, they've been characterizing RCLC's work for quite some time. Hearn Gulch is located about 9 miles north of Wallala, and it's this pocket beach that used to be a dock hole port where timber was loaded onto ships and sent to various locations. And now when you make your way down to the beach, you feel like you could be many miles away from any point of habitation or travel in that it just feels really remote. It's a wild little beach, and from the top of the bluff, you can look down onto the beach, and you're usually going to have the place to yourself. So it's a nice little spot to go if you want to go very far away without having to travel too far. Cook's Beach is
Mhm.
more of a neighborhood beach, and any evening you're going to tend to find people there with their dogs, hopefully on leash, and enjoying the beach. And our role in that project was to enable access to the beach. The Bonham family donated a trail easement, which provides ongoing trail access to the beach. And then we continue to steward that trail to keep it clean and safe and sometimes repair after storms. The Bluff Trail, the Wallala Bluff Trail, is recognizable to everyone who's been here, of course. It's not that long, quarter-mile trail on the edge of town, overlooking the river's opening and the ocean. But it really highlights what makes this place so extraordinary with the views and the moments or the places where folks can stop and rest. And that's another one of those places where volunteers have been so critical in protecting it
Yeah,
or stewarding it.
yeah, we're going to come to volunteers in a bit, but I want to jump back to Cook's Beach just for a second. I've never been on Cook's Beach, but I've driven on the piece of the road. It's not far from the St. Oars building. Is that correct? In that vicinity?
Yeah, you're right. And as you said, there's a little road there that kind of loops off of Highway 1 and off street, sort of off street parking. And it's rather than trying to explain it, it's easiest to just go to our website, rclc.org, and look for the location and it pops right up.
Right, fantastic. And the Wallowa Bluff Trail, how long has that been in it's been there as long as I've been around, but about how old is there? When did that whole trail get started?
Yeah, Bob Rudemoller and Mary Sue Ittner, I think, agitated for the trail in the mid to latter part of the 90s, and we're our continuing proponents of the trail, and it's just become such a beloved uh, uh, community feature, and they're out there every Tuesday morning with volunteers, cleaning up, repairing, taking ongoing pride in that trail, and God bless them for it.
Yeah. Tell our viewers about who Bob and Sue are. You just referred to them, and who are they within the organization?
Yeah, Bob Rudemuller is one of the founders of the organization. So he's been on the board of directors for more than 30 years now. A lot of people know Bob. A lot of people know Mary Sue. Mary Sue has devoted most of her efforts to the trail itself. But you know, they're community fixtures. And I saw them this morning at Point Arena, and they were going out to go for a hike there, and they love this place and they invest deeply in it. And it's very characteristic of some of the folks who support us in that they invest their time, their money, and lots of love.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now that kind of takes us to the most recent project. My notes call it the newest project, but it's not brand new, and that's the Mill Bend Preserve. Um, Educate us here about how that even happened. What was going on? That was a piece of private land, and how did this preserve come into being?
Yeah, big ideas and an opportunity, and there you go. As many people know, Mill Bend Preserve is located at the very southwestern edge of Mendocino County. So if you're traveling south out of Wallala, you're immediately going to be on roadway with Mill Bend Preserve on both sides of you, and then you hit the bridge and make your way into Sonoma County. Um, when it came up for sale, like 2019, 2020, there were some advocates who said, my goodness, this has been a property held by timber industry interests primarily over the past 150 years. About 100 of those years had been in very productive, heavy industrial level timber production,
Yeah,
right?
there was a sawmill there, was there not?
There
At one
were
time?
several. Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, on this site, there was a fairly large one down by the river. I mean, it was easiest just to put the mill right there in the water, right? They were
Yeah.
different thinking at the time.
Yeah.
And so the thought was, boy, this is an incredible opportunity as a resource for the community and an opportunity to restore it for plants, wildlife, and all those other natural features.
Wow. And so you said acquired, so a private entity owned it, but that means you all had to buy it,
We had
which
to buy it.
means it means you had to pay money or come up with, how did that all happen?
Yeah, conservation doesn't happen without money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter. Um, so fundraising efforts kicked into gear, and there was an effort to have a bridge loan provided to us by a conservation-minded donor to hold the property. In the meantime, we then generated I mean to say we reached out to the state and to federal sources for funding to help purchase the property, but we couldn't do it with that alone. The organization had to also reach out to private donors, and the donors showed up. And so when all was said and done, uh, the property was acquired. The money was returned to the bridge loan donor,
Mhm.
and then we realized the work was ahead.
Right. And if my memory serves me, from all sources, what was the amount you had to raise? It was in the neighborhood of 2 million, or was it more than that?
Yeah, it was just under, and that preceded my time. I should know off the top of my head, but I'm forgetting. And apologies.
Now, nonetheless, it's a sizable amount of money, and so quite a success for an organization like RCLC to be able to fundraise at that level.
Yeah, if I may follow on that, keep in mind that this is an organization that had three access and trail projects, and now suddenly they're looking to buy a 113-acre property.
Yeah, it's kind of a big jump up scale
It's a
wise.
big jump up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit. Okay, that's how you got there. You bought it, and here it is. Next thing, the good news is you bought it, you paid for it. Now the next thing is you got to do something with this.
Got to do something.
It's not a preserve yet. You all have to step in and preserve. Talk about the plans for the Mill Bend Preserve, and what are some of the things that you've accomplished, and what are the things that you envision yet to accomplish?
Yeah, this is where it's hard to be briefer, right? Because the fact of the matter is, when they bought the property and then they looked around and they saw the work to be done, that's when they said, "Okay, we need to bring someone aboard to help lead this effort," and that's when I came aboard.
Right.
So, what were we seeking to do? Make an effort to enable the repair, the enhancement of the river habitat, the estuary, repair the plants and wildlife habitats here on the preserve itself, down by the estuary, the willows, and then up into the forested lands. And I say that very generally because it meant different things in different places, but essentially it meant removing the invasive plants, weeds that had strangled opportunity for the native plants and then had the wildlife that depends on it to prosper. And then at the same time, for us to protect the property from catastrophic wildfire on behalf of the community, all the while wanting to do this for natural purposes, but for purposes of sharing this nature with the community and visitors. as an example of what's possible.
Yeah. And that creates a dilemma that I think is common to people in the nature conservancy and land trusts and parks and everything. Is that part of your mission is to preserve and enhance what historically has been there, the habitats, the flora and the fauna, and at the same time allow human beings, all of us, to learn and to experience it and everything. And the dilemma is how do we open it up to human beings without just destroying the very thing that we wanted to open up for human beings?
Yeah. It's there are many history of conservation courses done on this subject,
Yeah,
and people have been in places, in natural places, for as long as there have been people.
right.
That doesn't mean we've been driving our pickup trucks in the river for as long as there have been people. So it is a matter of what we do where, under what circumstances, and trying to find not just a balance in volume of activity, but type. And all day long, I'm going to stand on the pillar of belief that people only love what they know, and telling people that they're not invited into a place is the best way of disassociating them from it. So we're trying to find that world of appreciation, of nurturing the nature, and then conveying that sense of experience to the generations that follow. That's where the hope lies.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, one of the most interesting things about the Mill Bend property, the Mill Bend Preserve, is that there's a cemetery on the
Yeah,
property. What is that? Where did
yeah,
that come from?
right. And it's funny to think, isn't it, that I doubt any of the original enthusiasts for the protection and acquisition of the property were thinking, we want a cemetery. But
Yeah,
as it turns out, it's one of the most treasured gems about this preserve, this property. When the property was purchased several years ago, you couldn't even see that it was a cemetery. It was overgrown. The headstones were either missing or fallen over. The sign over the cemetery didn't exist, and it was through many, many hours of volunteers that it was restored. It Lovely, graceful benches were placed. And really importantly, the histories of the folks who were at rest there um, were researched and told by pros who had done this work in their professional lives, and they did it as a labor of love. And one of the best places to learn about that is to either go to the website, or even better, come visit us here and look at the QR codes and learn about the people.
that's fantastic. Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, that we don't lose our history and who and that the names on tombstones are more than just names in stone. They're a rich history that we all share in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If I could add to that, George,
sure.
one of the things we're learning now is that we're kind of in a humble, we try to be in a humble place of learning toward understanding the thousands of years of history that preceded the activity that was post-colonial contact. And we've just been so blessed by the fact that the tribal historic preservation officer from the Kashaya Pomo Band of Indians, Anthony Macias, and Rick Lewa from the Manchester Band of Pomo Indians are participating in our efforts here. They've been very kind to us with that, and it's a learning process, but what we feel blessed by it.
Yeah, that's great because that's a whole history that uh, unfortunately many of us are ignorant of, and that's a history that I don't know is hundreds or thousands of years old. Yeah. Jim, I want to come back. You made a little bit of reference earlier to volunteers within RCLC. Just expound on volunteers and why they're important to you and why should people volunteer?
Yeah, a lot of reasons to volunteer. Sometimes we come thinking we're going to help, and we find that it's helping us, right, in general in life. But the volunteers that who have contributed to RCLC over the years have been just so loyal, and they put in so many hours. Hearn Gulch, Cook's Beach, Joel Chabin and his crew there have been enormously important to maintaining the safety of that trail down to the beach. Um, the Bluff Trail, I talked about Bob and Mary Sue and their core of workers every Tuesday morning. Kirk Perkins is
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Well known.
He well known. He's and you know he just stepped into a role that where help was needed, and he has a crew of people also out here on Tuesdays, just on hands and knees, scrubbing headstones, removing weeds, repairing some of the surrounding infrastructure that's been damaged. And here at Mill Bend Preserve, we have folks who come out and help pick weeds and participate in our biochar burns and so on. But of course, Mill Bend Preserve has grown to a point where the needs far outstrip volunteers alone.
Yeah, because it's a bigger piece of property. You've never taken
Yeah.
on that many acres before. Yeah.
No, and furthermore, it's not just a matter of opening and closing a gate. It's we're restoring this place to a more natural conditions and safe trails and educational opportunities that will be post timber mills.
Right.
And you know we just hired our fifth regular employee a couple days ago.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. And a little bit I've seen and had it's been a year or two that your organization did a presentation on some different alternatives for how the Mill Bend Preserve could be developed. When I say developed, I mean in the best sense as an educational and a preserve that did all those things. How can our viewers, without going, there's a lot of detail in that, without going into all of that, how could a viewer get a picture of what you guys see, what the organization sees in the future, maybe even some distance in the future?
Yeah. First easy thing to do for those who are able is come out here, go for a walk,
Okay.
get an idea of where it is, kind of place it in your mind. You know, what is it Wallace Stegner said? I don't know who I am if I don't know where I am.
Right.
But additionally, go to our website. You can dig deep into the materials in the conservation plan, or you can just get a sense of the images and some of the general schematics that outline where we're imagining trails, where the viewing platform at the estuary will be located, and what you'll be able to see. It's that sense of things.
Yeah, that's really great because it, this site has been neglected since timber days. It's
Yeah.
just whatever happened, and like you said, people drive their ATVs down there, or all kinds of things would go on. It was a big neglected mess
Well,
in
if I
my
can, yeah,
yeah,
indeed. And yet here I am sitting in what was a caretaker or a worker's old house.
yeah,
It's probably not perfectly up to code. Got my attention a couple days ago when we had staff here and we had the earthquake. We thought we'd be better outside. But it's also lovely in that it's a reminder of what was together
yeah,
with where we're going. So it's
yeah,
these symbols of people in place again.
yeah. That's really great. Well, speaking, so there's the Mill Bend Preserve. Are there any other interesting projects in your mind or in your dreams that are maybe out there that we, the public, haven't heard or thought of? Anything that you can tantalize us with?
Um, I am very eager, enthusiastic about some acquisition possibilities for next
Okay.
year. I hope that if we talk again next year at this time, I can tell you what we're working on for next acquisitions. We're not done here. Our
Yeah,
job is especially in the context of the world and changes, climate change, and the need to do everything we can to give nature a chance. Um, we're looking over a fence and up every watershed. Let's just put it that way, with this watershed being the
okay, that's
most
good.
important one.
So you've got your radars turned on for other places where RCLC can come in and do what they do.
And we're having lots of behind the scenes conversations toward that.
That's fantastic. That's great. That's great. Okay, well, I'm going to hold you to that. I don't know, 6 months or a year from now, you're going to have something exciting to tell us. Fingers crossed, something exciting to tell us about, and we'll want to hear about it. Okay, I'm watching this, and I say, okay, RCLC sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I could pitch in somewhere here, or maybe I want to contribute. Maybe I want to help you acquire one of these other properties, or maybe I can substantially help, or maybe I can't financially do a whole lot, but I've got time that I can do.
Yeah.
What could our viewers do? How could they get involved?
We always need and appreciate volunteers. The easiest way to plug in and get a feeling for what we're doing is just check out the website and maybe give us a call and get on our mailing list. Find out when the next volunteer day is and just come kick our tires. This Saturday we have. I don't know when this is viewing, but on Saturday, December 7th, we have a wreath making event for families and
Right,
kids.
right.
But in addition, you know, a few years ago, the annual budget for RCLC was in the tens of thousands. Next year, I anticipate it being about $500,000 for our operating budget.
That's
And
great.
that's in addition to the project work we're doing. The grants we receive, they pay for projects. Our time is usually paid for through donations, and that's where we rely on the community.
Yeah.
rclc.org, our Facebook page, or for folks who just want to write a check and send it in, it's RCLC PO Box 1511, Walla. So,
And if they've got a check and just want to drive over and put it in your hands, that'd be okay
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Indeed. I mean, I'll give you my personal number, not just for checks, but for reaching out, which is 707-933-7551. And my email, which is most reliable, is jelias@rclc.org. And it's also a chance to come meet some of the people who are doing the work here on the ground and their different backgrounds.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, viewers, you heard it here. Jim just gave us all the contact information you could want. Now there's no excuse not to call, email, show up, go to the website and find out how you can participate or contribute or be a volunteer. Well, that's a lot of things, and I want to say that's a big jump up from the tens of thousands of dollars up to an operating budget of $500,000. That's in the nonprofit world, $500,000 is not a gigantic organization, but to move from that size up to $500,000, that's a big scale. That's a big scale up. Yet at the same time, to me, it speaks of a pretty lean organization. You're not sounding like you're a no frills organization. There's not a lot of fluff in there.
No, the money goes right to the effort, and the effort goes right to the result. The
Yeah,
fact that we're spending money is great news because it means there's work to do and we're doing it.
right.
So if I tell you next year that we have a budget of $1 million, it doesn't mean that we have nicer furniture. It means that we're
Yeah,
doing even more work.
yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. I think people like to hear that from in the nonprofit world that you're minding the nickels and dimes, and it's
Mhm.
that's really great. To our viewers, you've been listening to Jim Elias, the executive director of Redwood Coast Land Conservancy. Jim, it's been really great, and you've educated me, and I hope our viewers on the work of RCLC. And we sure appreciate your time today.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And as I said, if people are at all Mill Bend Preserve or RCLC curious, reach out to us, please.
You heard it here first, folks. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.